Marcus Thornton was 50 years old. As CEO of Thornton Global Investments in downtown Chicago, he commanded an empire worth $800 million. His black sedan glided through city streets every morning, passing skyscrapers that bore his company's name on gleaming facades. His routine was precise. Wake at 5:30 a.m., work out for 45 minutes in his penthouse gym overlooking Lake Michigan. Custom Italian suit, always Tom Ford or Armani. Office by 7:15 a.m. sharp, never a minute late. To the world, Marcus was made of steel, calculating, efficient, emotionless. Business rivals called him the Ice King of Chicago. Employees whispered he had ice water in his veins instead of blood. In 25 years of building his empire, he'd never taken a sick day, never missed a board meeting, never shown a crack in his armor. His ex-wife Catherine had left him 8 years ago. "You're not human, Marcus," she'd said. "You're a machine." She'd taken $127 million in the divorce. Marcus had barely blinked, but there was one part of his routine nobody knew about. One small detour Marcus never mentioned to his board, his executive team, or even James, his driver of 15 years. Every single morning at 7:05 a.m., Marcus told James to pull over at Michigan Avenue and East Monroe Street. There, in front of a closed convenience store, sat a young woman on worn cardboard with a faded plastic cup. She couldn't have been more than 25. Dark, tangled hair fell past her shoulders. Clothes 3 sizes too big, clearly donated from some church bin. Her face was gaunt, cheekbones sharp from too many skipped meals. Her hands were rough and chapped from Chicago's brutal winters. But her eyes, those eyes, still held a flicker of hope that somehow hadn't been extinguished by years on the streets. Marcus never asked her name. She never asked his. But every morning, without fail, for 10 years, he would step out of his sedan and hand her a crisp $20 bill. Always a 20. Never more, never less. He kept them in a separate compartment in his wallet. Bills he got fresh from the bank, specifically for her. "Thank you, sir," she would whisper, thin fingers trembling as she took the money. "God bless you." Marcus would nod, expressionless, adjust his tie, and return to his car. James never asked questions. That's why Marcus kept him employed so long. James understood that some things were meant to remain unspoken. 10 years, 3,650 days, over $73,000 given to a stranger on the street. People who knew Marcus would be shocked. This was a man who once refused to donate to a children's hospital charity event because he didn't believe in handouts. A man who had fired an executive for showing up 5 minutes late to a meeting. A man who built his fortune being ruthless, cutting costs, never showing weakness. So why did he stop every morning for this homeless girl? Marcus didn't fully understand it himself. He'd tried to analyze it the way he analyzed everything else, breaking it down into logical components, searching for rational explanation. But there wasn't one. Maybe it started because she never begged, never called out to pedestrians like the other homeless people on Michigan Avenue, never held up cardboard signs with sob stories written in black marker. She just sat there, quietly, with dignity, as if she were waiting for something or someone, as if she believed, against all evidence, that things would get better. Maybe it was because she always said, "Thank you," and "God bless you," even on days when Marcus was the only person who gave her anything. Even when other pedestrians walked past without seeing her, as if she were invisible. Even when teenagers threw coffee cups at her and told her to get a job, she never cursed them, never responded with anger. She just blessed everyone who came near her, whether they deserved it or not. Or maybe deep in a place Marcus refused to acknowledge, she reminded him of someone. Someone from a lifetime ago. Someone he had lost and never found again. Someone whose face he still saw in his dreams, even after 25 years. Whatever the reason, the routine continued, until one Tuesday morning in late October, when everything changed. October 17th started like any other day. Marcus woke at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of his alarm. He completed his workout, 30 minutes of weights, 15 minutes on the treadmill. He showered, shaved, and dressed in his charcoal gray Tom Ford suit with a crisp white shirt and burgundy tie. At 6:50 a.m., he rode the elevator down from his penthouse on the 89th floor of the John Hancock Center. James was waiting with the car, as always, reading the morning paper. "Good morning, Mr. Thornton," James said, folding the paper and pulling away from the curb. Marcus grunted in response, already reviewing emails on his phone. A merger was falling apart in Tokyo. The Japanese executives were getting cold feet. The legal team needed his signature on 14 documents by noon. A competitor was trying to poach 3 of his top analysts with generous signing bonuses. His CFO had concerns about a $200 million renewable energy investment. But at 7:05 a.m., like clockwork, Marcus said, "Michigan and Monroe." James nodded and pulled over to the curb. Marcus stepped out of the car, the cold October air hitting his face. He reached into his wallet for the separate compartment where he kept the 20s. He pulled out a crisp bill and walked toward the corner. But she wasn't there. Marcus stopped in his tracks, confused. The cardboard mat was gone. The faded plastic cup was gone. The corner where she had sat for 10 years was empty except for a crumpled fast food wrapper tumbling in the morning breeze and a dark stain on the concrete. In 10 years, she had never not been there. Not once. Marcus had seen her sitting in that spot during thunderstorms, her clothes soaked through. He'd seen her there during blizzards, huddled under a thin blanket that did nothing against Chicago wind. He'd seen her during the brutal heat wave of 2012, when 3 people died of heat exhaustion on the streets. She was always there at 7:05 a.m. Always. Marcus looked around, thinking maybe she had moved to a different spot on the block. But the street was empty except for a few early commuters rushing past. None of them homeless, none of them paying attention to Marcus standing on the corner with a $20 bill in his hand. Marcus stood there for a full minute, uncertain what to do. The 20 was still in his hand. For the first time in 10 years, he had nothing to do with it. Finally, he walked back to the car and climbed into the back seat. "Everything all right, sir?" James asked, glancing at Marcus in the rearview mirror. "Drive," Marcus said curtly, his voice sharper than he'd intended. James didn't ask any more questions. He pulled away from the curb and continued the route to the office. But everything was not all right. All day, through back-to-back meetings and conference calls with London and Singapore, and a tense lunch with the board of directors, where they questioned his renewable energy investment, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the empty corner. Where was she? Had she finally gotten help, found a shelter, moved to a different city? Had some social services organization finally convinced her to get off the streets? Or, and this thought bothered him more than he wanted to admit, had something happened to her? Marcus tried to focus on his work. He signed the 14 documents the legal team needed. He smoothed over the merger negotiations with Tokyo by promising to fly there personally next week. He convinced the board that the renewable energy investment was sound, but in the quiet moments between tasks, his mind kept drifting back to that empty corner, to the girl who wasn't there, to the routine that had been broken after 10 years. At 2:47 p.m., Marcus made a decision. "Cancel my 3:30, he told his assistant Monica over the intercom. There was a pause. "Sir, you have the quarterly review with the—" "Cancel it. Reschedule for tomorrow." "But sir, we've had this scheduled for 6 weeks. I said cancel it, Monica." Another pause. "Yes, sir." At 3 p.m., Marcus did something he hadn't done in 12 years. He left the office early. He walked past Monica's desk without a word. She stared at him like he'd just announced he was moving to Tibet to become a monk. Marcus Thornton never left early. Never. "James," Marcus said as he climbed into the car, "take me to Michigan and Monroe." James blinked in surprise but didn't question. "Yes, sir." When they arrived, the corner was still empty. It was 3:17 p.m. now, and the streets were busier with people getting off work early or heading out for coffee breaks. But none of them were the girl Marcus was looking for. Marcus got out of the car and walked to the corner. He stood exactly where she used to sit. The concrete was cold and hard. He tried to imagine sitting here for hours every day. In every kind of weather, watching hundreds of people walk past without seeing you. How had she survived 10 years of this? Marcus looked around and spotted the convenience store. It was open now, fluorescent lights harsh against the gray afternoon. Through the window, he could see a clerk behind the counter, a young man in his 20s scrolling through his phone. Marcus walked to the store and pushed open the door. A bell chimed. The clerk looked up, annoyed at being disturbed. "Help you?" the clerk asked without much interest. Marcus approached the counter. "The young woman who usually sits outside, the homeless girl. Have you seen her?" The clerk's expression shifted from boredom to something that looked like pity. "You mean Lily?" Lily. After 10 years of seeing her every single morning, after giving her over $73,000, Marcus finally knew her name. "Yeah," Marcus said, his voice rougher than he'd intended. "Lily, where is she?" The clerk sighed and put down his phone. "Man, it was crazy. I came in for my shift 3 days ago. That would have been Saturday morning. And I saw her just collapse. Right there on the sidewalk, face first, didn't even put her hands out to catch herself." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "And? I called 911 right away. Ambulance came maybe 10 minutes later. The paramedics, man, they didn't look good. I heard one of them say something about her vitals being all over the place. They put her on a stretcher and took her away." "Which hospital?" The clerk shrugged. "I don't know, man. Probably County General. That's where they take most of the homeless folks. But listen," he lowered his voice. "She looked bad. Real bad. I've seen a lot of people on these streets, you know? And she looked like she might not make it." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Thank you," he managed to say. He turned and walked out of the store without another word. "County General Hospital," he told James. "Now." "Yes, sir." As James navigated through Chicago traffic toward the west side, Marcus stared out the window. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. A 50-year-old man in an expensive suit, looking older and more tired than he wanted to admit. Lily. For 10 years, she'd been a part of his routine, a constant in his carefully ordered life. He'd never asked her name, never asked where she came from, or how she'd ended up on the streets. Never tried to help beyond those daily $20 bills. Why? Because helping meant getting involved, and getting involved meant feeling something. And Marcus Thornton had spent 25 years building walls around his heart, making sure he never felt anything again. But now those walls were cracking, and he couldn't stop thinking about the girl named Lily, who might be dying in a hospital on the west side of Chicago. Cook County General Hospital was a massive, overcrowded building that had been built in the 1960s and looked like it hadn't been updated since. The automatic doors slid open with a mechanical hiss. The smell hit Marcus immediately. Antiseptic mixed with something else that seemed to speak of illness and desperation and lives hanging in the balance. The lobby was crowded, a mother holding a crying baby. An elderly man in a wheelchair, staring at nothing. 2 teenagers with anxious faces. A woman pacing, speaking rapid Spanish into her phone. Marcus approached the front desk, where a tired-looking nurse was typing on a keyboard, held together with hope and duct tape. "I'm looking for a patient," Marcus said. The nurse kept typing. "Name? Lily." Marcus realized he didn't know her last name. "A young woman, mid-20s, brought in by ambulance 3 days ago. Homeless." The nurse finally looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion. She took in his $5,000 suit, his Rolex, his perfectly styled salt and pepper hair. "Are you family?" she asked, her voice flat. Marcus hesitated. What was he? A stranger who gave her money? A man who drove past her every morning for 10 years without ever really seeing her? Marcus paused. "I'm the closest thing she has to family." The nurse studied him for a long moment, running calculations in her head. Finally, she sighed. "Lily Morgan, room 437, 4th floor. But visiting hours are almost over, and she's in critical condition. Only immediate family is allowed in the ICU." "Please," Marcus said. The word came out harder than he'd intended. He tried again, softer. "Please." I need to see her. The nurse looked at him, really looked at him. Maybe she saw something in his face. Desperation, grief, fear. I shouldn't do this, she said quietly. Marcus pulled out his wallet and placed 5 $100 bills on the counter. Not arrogantly, not as a bribe, as a plea. The nurse looked at the money for a long moment. Then she slowly picked up the bills and tucked them into her pocket. Room 437, 4th floor, she said in a barely audible voice. You didn't hear it from me, and if anyone asks, you're her uncle. Thank you. Mr. Thornton, Marcus Thornton. The nurse nodded. She's very sick, Mr. Thornton. You should prepare yourself. Marcus took the elevator to the 4th floor. The ICU was quieter than the lobby. But the tension was worse. The steady beeping of machines, the soft shuffle of nurses' shoes on linoleum, the occasional alarm sending staff rushing to a room. Room 437 was at the end of a long hallway. Through the small window in the door, Marcus could see her. Lily was unconscious, lying in a narrow hospital bed, hooked up to more machines than Marcus could count. Her face was even thinner than he remembered, her cheekbones jutting out sharply, her skin the color of old paper. An oxygen mask covered her nose and mouth, condensation forming on the inside with each shallow breath. IV lines ran into both arms. A heart monitor beeped steadily beside the bed. Marcus stood there, frozen, his hand on the door handle. This was the girl he'd seen every morning for a decade. The girl who had always said, "God bless you," with hope in her eyes. The girl who had sat in the cold and the rain and the heat, waiting for something better. Now she looked like she was barely clinging to life. "Can I help you?" Marcus turned to find a doctor standing beside him. She was young, early 30s, with kind dark eyes and exhaustion written across her face. Her white coat had a name tag, Dr. Priya Patel, Oncology. "I'm here to see Lily," Marcus said. "I'm her—" He couldn't say uncle. He couldn't lie to a doctor. "I'm someone who knows her." Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "And you are?" "Marcus Thornton." If she recognized the name, she didn't show it. She just looked at him with those kind, tired eyes. "Walk with me," she said. They moved to a small waiting area. Through the window, Marcus could see the Chicago skyline in the distance. Dr. Patel sat down and gestured for Marcus to do the same. "Lily has stage 4 acute myeloid leukemia," Dr. Patel said without preamble. "It's an aggressive form of blood cancer. She's been sick for months, maybe longer, but she never sought treatment. By the time she collapsed and the ambulance brought her here, the cancer had spread throughout her body. Her organs are failing. Her immune system is almost completely destroyed." Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "How long?" Dr. Patel's expression was gentle but honest. "Days, maybe a week at most. We're doing everything we can to keep her comfortable, but there's no treatment at this stage. The cancer is too advanced. I'm sorry. But there has to be something. Mr. Thornton, if she had come to us 6 months ago, even 3 months ago, we might have had options. Chemotherapy, maybe a bone marrow transplant. But now," she shook her head, "her body is too weak. Treatment would kill her faster than the cancer." Marcus sat in silence, trying to process what he was hearing. Lily was dying. The girl he'd seen every morning for 10 years was dying. "Can I see her?" he asked. "Yes," Dr. Patel said, "but I need to warn you, she's been in and out of consciousness. When she is awake, she's often confused. The cancer has affected her brain. She may not recognize you." "I understand." Marcus entered room 437. The beeping of the machines seemed louder inside. He sat down in the single plastic chair beside her bed. For the first time in 10 years, he really looked at her face. Even now, sick and dying, there was something familiar about her features. The shape of her nose, slightly upturned, the curve of her jaw, the way her dark hair fell across the pillow. Marcus's eyes drifted to the small plastic bag on the bedside table labeled Patient Belongings. Through the clear plastic, He could see a worn jacket, a small notebook, and a photograph. Marcus reached for the bag. His hands were shaking. When was the last time his hands had shaken? He pulled out the photograph, and his entire world stopped. The photograph was old, the edges worn and faded from being handled too many times, from being carried in pockets and bags, from being the only physical connection to a person who was gone. But despite the wear, the image was unmistakable. It showed a young woman, maybe 23 or 24 years old, sitting on a park bench in what Marcus recognized as Grant Park. She had long, flowing dark hair that caught the sunlight. Her eyes were bright, full of life and laughter. She wore a simple yellow sundress that Marcus remembered buying for her at a little boutique near Northwestern's campus. In her hand was a half-eaten ice cream cone, mint chocolate chip, her favorite, and she was laughing at something, her head thrown back, joy radiating from every part of her. Marcus knew that photograph. He knew it because he had taken it 25 years ago, on a summer afternoon, when the world still made sense, when he still believed in love, when he still believed in forever. The woman in the photograph was Elena Rodriguez, the only woman Marcus Thornton had ever truly loved, the woman he had planned to marry, the woman who had disappeared from his life without explanation when he was 25 years old, leaving him heartbroken and hollow and determined never to love anyone ever again. Marcus's hands trembled as he stared at the photograph. His mind raced through memories he had buried for decades. Elena. He'd met her during his junior year at Northwestern University. She was a literature major with dreams of becoming a writer. She wrote poetry that made him feel things he'd never felt before. She read novels in coffee shops while it rained outside. She talked about books the way other people talked about religion, with passion and reverence and absolute belief. Marcus had been a business student, already planning his empire. They were complete opposites. She thought too much about feelings. He thought too much about money. She wanted to change the world through words. He wanted to change it through power. But somehow, impossibly, they fit together perfectly. For 2 years, they were inseparable. They spent weekends exploring Chicago, the Art Institute, the lakefront, tiny ethnic restaurants. She introduced him to literature. He introduced her to ambition. She taught him how to feel. He taught her how to plan. Marcus had never felt that way about anyone before. The way she laughed, the way she fell asleep reading, the way she looked at him like he was the only person who truly understood her. He'd bought a ring. Nothing expensive, he was still a student, but it meant something. He'd planned the proposal, a picnic in Grant Park on a Saturday afternoon. But before he could ask her, Elena vanished. One day she was there. The next day, she wasn't. He came to her apartment for dinner, and her roommate told him Elena had packed a bag and left in the middle of the night. No note, no explanation, no goodbye. Her phone was disconnected. Her family in Texas couldn't be reached. Elena had always been vague about her family, said they didn't get along. Marcus searched for 6 months. He hired a private investigator. He called every hospital. He checked shelters, clinics. Nothing. Eventually, he forced himself to give up, to move on. He threw himself into building his business. He told himself he didn't need anyone. Love was a weakness. He dated other women, married Catherine, who left 8 years ago. But he never felt about any of them the way he'd felt about Elena. And now, 25 years later, he was holding a photograph he'd taken of the only woman he'd ever loved. But why did Lily have it? Marcus's breath caught. He looked at the photograph, then at Lily's sleeping face. The shape of her nose, the curve of her jaw, the dark hair. "Oh God, no," Marcus whispered. "It can't be." But even as he said it, he knew. Deep in his bones, he knew. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone. Elena Rodriguez, Chicago Death Records. The search loaded. Elena Rodriguez, born March 12, 1975. Died March 14, 2003. Age 28. Cause vehicular accident. Marcus felt the world tilting. 2003, that was 22 years ago. He did the math. If Lily was 25 now, she'd been born in 1999. Elena disappeared late 1998. She had been pregnant with his child, and she never told him. Marcus put his head in his hands. A sound came from his throat, between a sob and a gasp. Why, Elena? Why did you leave? Why didn't you tell me? He typed another search. Elena Rodriguez obituary 2003, Chicago. A newspaper archive loaded. Elena's face appeared, younger than in the photograph, but unmistakably her. The obituary was brief. Elena Rodriguez, 28, died March 14, 2003 in a single-vehicle accident on Interstate 94 during a heavy rainstorm. She is survived by her daughter, Lily Morgan, age 3. Services will be private. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. Morgan, Elena's mother's maiden name. Marcus looked at Lily again, his heart breaking into pieces he didn't know existed. This was his daughter. His daughter. For 22 years, she had been alone. Her mother died when she was only 3. She grew up in foster care and ended up on the streets. And for 10 years, Marcus had walked past his own daughter every single morning, never knowing who she was. He stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly. He nearly ran to the nurse's station. I need a doctor, now, and DNA testing, immediately. Dr. Patel appeared within minutes. Marcus explained everything in a rushed torrent. The photograph, Elena, the timeline. I need a paternity test, now. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. Lab results take 2 to 3 days. I'll pay for expedited processing, whatever it costs. Even expedited takes 24 hours. Then, 24 hours. But now. Dr. Patel must have seen something in his eyes. Desperation, grief, hope. I'll arrange it. They took swabs from Marcus and Lily. Samples sent to the lab with instructions for fastest processing. Marcus sat in Lily's room all night. Didn't sleep, didn't eat. Just watched her chest rise and fall, listening to the machines keeping her alive. Around 3 a.m., Lily's eyes fluttered open. She looked confused, disoriented. Then her gaze landed on Marcus. You, she whispered hoarsely. The suit man. Marcus leaned forward. Lily, my name is Marcus. I know, she said softly. I asked about you once. Someone said you're rich. Lily, the photograph and your belongings. The woman. Who is she? Lily's eyes filled with tears. My mom, Elena. Car accident when I was little. That's all I have left of her. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Did she ever talk about your father? Lily shook her head weakly. She said he didn't know about me, that she left before she could tell him. Lily coughed. She said she loved him but couldn't trap him with a baby. He had big dreams. She didn't want to hold him back. Marcus closed his eyes. Oh, Elena, you foolish, selfless woman. Lily, I think I'm your father. Lily stared at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she laughed, weak, raspy. What? The woman in the photograph. Elena. I knew her. I loved her. She left me 25 years ago without telling me she was pregnant. I've been looking for her ever since, not knowing she was dead. And I've been walking past you every morning for 10 years without knowing you're my daughter. Lily's eyes widened. That's impossible. I've ordered a DNA test. We'll know tomorrow. But Lily, I'm sure. I can see her in your face. I see myself in your eyes. Tears streamed down Lily's pale cheeks. Why? Why tell me now? I'm dying. What does it matter? Marcus took her hand, thin, cold, and held it tightly. It matters because you're not alone anymore. It matters because you have a father who's going to fight like hell to keep you alive. It matters because I've wasted 10 years not knowing you, and I'm not wasting another second. Lily sobbed. I'm dying. The doctor said, I don't care what they said. We're gonna fight this. I can't afford treatment. I don't have insurance. I'm nobody. You're not nobody, Marcus said fiercely. You're Lily Morgan. You're Elena's daughter. and you're my daughter, and I'll spend every cent I have to save you." By 8 a.m., Marcus had made 17 phone calls. Johns Hopkins, MD Anderson, Memorial Sloan Kettering. He flew in a leukemia expert from Germany. By noon, Lily was moved to Northwestern Memorial's VIP wing. Private room, team of 5 doctors. Experimental treatments costing more per day than most people made in a year. At 6 p.m., Dr. Patel arrived with an envelope. The DNA results. Marcus's hands shook as he opened it. Deep down, he already knew. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. He showed Lily, who was awake and more alert. She read it, tears streaming. "You're really my father?" "Yes." "For 10 years, you gave me money every morning." "Yes." "You helped me survive. And now I'm going to help you live." The next 3 months were the hardest of Marcus Thornton's life. Lily underwent aggressive chemotherapy. Lost her hair. Lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. Days she was so sick she couldn't lift her head. But Marcus was there for every moment. Held her hand through vomiting. Read to her when she couldn't sleep. Learned about her life. Foster homes. Abuse. Years on the street. He told her about Elena. How much he'd loved her. The life they could have had. "She left because she loved you," Lily said weakly one day. "Mom told me. She said you were going to build empires, and she didn't want to be the reason you gave up your dreams." "She was wrong," Marcus said. "I would have given up every empire in the world for her. For you." Month 4. The treatment was working. Cancer in remission. Lily getting stronger. Month 6. She was walking again, smiling again, living again. Marcus bought a house, not a mansion, but a warm home with a big backyard. Lily moved in. First time in her life she had her own bedroom, her own bathroom, and a father who loved her. She enrolled in community college, made friends, started to heal, physically and emotionally. Marcus changed too. Learned to smile again, to laugh, to care about more than profit margins. He cut work hours in half, stopped being the Ice King, started the Elena Rodriguez Foundation to help homeless young adults get healthcare and education. 2 years after that October morning when Marcus found the empty corner, Lily graduated from community college with honors. Marcus sat in the audience, tears streaming, as she walked across the stage to receive her degree. After the ceremony, they went to the park, the same park where Marcus had taken that photograph of Elena 27 years ago. They sat on a bench. Lily held a framed copy of that same photograph. "Do you think Mom knew," Lily asked, "that you'd find me someday?" Marcus thought about it. "I think she hoped, but didn't count on it. She was too proud, too selfless. I wish I could have known her better." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Lily said, "You know what's funny? For 10 years, you gave me $20 every morning. And every morning, I prayed that someone, somewhere, cared if I lived or died." "I did," Marcus said. "I just didn't know it yet." Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for surviving until I found you." That night, Marcus called James, who had served him faithfully for years. "James, I'm promoting you." "Sir? You're no longer my driver. You're going to run the Elena Rodriguez Foundation. You'll help people like Lily, give them a chance at life." James was silent, then voice choked with emotion. "It would be an honor, Mr. Thornton." Epilogue. Marcus Thornton stood on the corner of Michigan Avenue and East Monroe Street. It had been 3 years since that October morning when everything changed. The empty corner wasn't empty anymore. There was now a small community center. The Elena and Lily Morgan Community Center, offering free meals, shelter beds, job training, and health care to Chicago's homeless population. Above the door was a photograph. The photograph. Elena smiling on a park bench, full of life and hope. Marcus walked inside. Lily was there, now 28 years old, healthy and vibrant, managing the center's volunteer program. "Hey, Dad," she said, smiling. "Hey, sweetheart." They had lunch together, a simple meal in the center's cafeteria. Surrounded by the people they were helping, and for the first time in his entire life, Marcus Thornton felt truly, completely rich. Not because of his billions, Not because of his empire, but because he had something no amount of money could buy: his daughter. After lunch, as they walked through the center together, a young homeless woman approached them hesitantly. She couldn't have been more than 20, with hollow eyes that reminded Marcus of how Lily used to look. "Excuse me," the girl whispered. "They told me you're the people who run this place?" Lily smiled warmly. "Yes, I'm Lily. How can we help you?" The girl's voice cracked. "I've been on the streets for 6 months. I don't know where else to go. I'm sick, and I'm scared." Marcus watched as Lily took the girl's hand, exactly the way he had held hers that first night in the hospital. "You're not alone anymore," Lily said gently. "We're going to help you. That's what this place is for." As Lily led the girl toward the medical clinic, she glanced back at Marcus. Their eyes met, and in that moment, no words were needed. This was Elena's legacy. This was their purpose. This was why everything had happened the way it did. Marcus walked back outside to the corner where it all began. The exact spot where Lily had sat for 10 years, where he had stopped every morning without knowing he was saving his own daughter. He looked up at the photograph of Elena above the door. The wind stirred the trees, and for just a moment, Marcus could swear he felt her presence, could almost hear her voice. "You found her, Marcus. You finally found her." Marcus smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "Yes, Elena, and she found me too." A taxi pulled up. James stepped out, holding a folder of paperwork for the foundation. He'd traded his driver's uniform for a suit, running the organization with the same dedication he'd once shown driving Marcus around Chicago. "Mr. Thornton," James said, then corrected himself with a grin. "Marcus, the board meeting starts in 20 minutes. Marcus nodded, but before going inside, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp $20 bill. Not for Lily, she didn't need it anymore, but for the next person who would sit on this corner. The next soul who needed to know that someone somewhere cared if they lived or died. He placed it in the donation box by the entrance, the one that read, "In memory of Elena Rodriguez, in honor of second chances." Inside the center, Lily was already working with the young homeless woman, making phone calls, arranging for medical tests, showing her that hope still existed in this world. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching his daughter save someone else's life the way her own had been saved. And he finally understood what Elena had known all along, that love isn't about possession or control. It's about letting go when necessary and holding on when it matters most. It's about being there when someone needs you, even if they don't know they need you yet. For 10 years, Marcus had given Lily $20 every morning, but Elena had given them both something far more valuable: a second chance at family, at love, at life itself. The Ice King of Chicago was gone forever. In his place stood a father, a man who had learned that the greatest fortune isn't built in boardrooms or counted in bank accounts. It's measured in moments like these, in simple lunches, in helping strangers, in knowing that when you go to sleep at night, someone you love will still be there in the morning. Marcus Thornton had everything now, not because he was rich, but because he was finally, completely home.